And we are live on Backseat Banter. I really appreciate everybody who is tuning in around the world. Welcome, sports fans. My name is Jonathan Silver. I'm here with Sam Kruchikov, Brandon
Yo,
Holkman, and we will be later joined by Ben Holkman, the hosts of Off the Bar podcast for Backseat Banter. It is a real pleasure having you guys tonight again for another installment of Backseat Basketball Banter. I'm really excited to get this one going because it's something personally I'm really passionate about. Fantasy basketball is going to be the topic for today, and we are going to get everybody out there ready for the first few rounds of their draft because we know how important it is to some people to get those core players to build your team around, to get that title and get the bragging rights over your friends. So without further ado, we will be looking at some of these rankings of the players and giving you guys our own rankings. So if let's say LeBron is number 6 or whatever, we can say, nah, LeBron falls out of the top 10. LeBron stays in the first round, no doubt. Whatever it may be, we'll give you guys our insight and our information so you guys can be as prepared as possible. With that being said, if you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe and like the stream. It really helps us out and it helps us grow. If you are listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of your preferred streaming services, please subscribe and consider ringing the bell to click and get notifications in the future. All right, let's get right into the episode, boys. Is there a consensus number one in this year's fantasy basketball drafting kind of prospects that you're looking at, or like is it up in the air really?
I mean, I know like off cam you kept saying Curry's number one just because he's gonna be without Clay, and he's had we saw when he had to carry the load, and we saw when Westbrook, when Durant left to the Warriors, we saw like kind of a similar thing, like Westbrook having to carry the load on offense and averaging a triple double, so he was the consensus number one. I don't know if this year's a consensus number one. I mean, yeah, Curry's a good shout, but I don't know. Last year for me, I had the number one overall pick and I drafted Giannis, and I seemed fine to do that. I won the league, and so and Giannis helped me definitely during that process. So I mean, it also didn't help that Curry got injured, got a hand injury and broke his hand like
Mm-hmm.
halfway through the season. So obviously, but
That doesn't hurt.
yeah, it doesn't hurt. But I don't know.
Actually,
I
I'm
like
gonna have to
Giannis.
I'm gonna have to go against both of Giannis and Curry here. I know I said Curry. I like Curry as a player. I like him as MVP favorite, but for fantasy, I'm looking more at a player like James Harden or Anthony Davis to be that number one guy that you can rely on night in and night out to win you your weeks. James Harden is just the best scorer in the NBA, and now with John Wall, I feel like he gets even more of a boost for his fantasy value rather than playing with a guy like Russell Westbrook, who needs to play with one of the highest usage rates in the NBA. So James Harden for me seems like a no-brainer at number one. The only person that for me contests it is Anthony Davis because of how amazing he is at offense and really unmatched at defense. The only player that can come close to that value is Giannis Antetokounmpo for defense and offense, but I just feel like Anthony Davis's blocks total way more than Giannis's at the end of the season, which is in turn going to give him more fantasy value.
Well, I don't know if there's a consensus number one overall pick. I think that the talent level of NBA players is just so high right now. It seems like every year they're only getting better. But I think that you're sleeping a little bit on Giannis. I think that Giannis is a back-to-back MVP, and this year it seems like he's hungry and wants to go for more because they lost out in the playoffs the last 2 seasons where they were the number one overall pick. He's going to come back hungrier than ever before. I know he got 2 MVPs, but that is not enough for him. He wants to keep dominating, keep getting better, and he's got an extra player that's going to help set him up for even easier buckets, and that's Drew Holiday. So I think Giannis is going to have some more opportunities. I think James Harden might be, if we're going to be picking at stones, might be the highest scorer when all things are said and done, because he's not sharing the ball with Russell Westbrook anymore, and he gets to be that guy undisputed. which didn't happen last season, and he could go back to MVP Harden numbers. But I also like Steph Curry. I know we kind of brushed him off a second ago, but Stephen Curry is going to have a near MVP season. I don't know if he's a favorite. Jonathan, I know you love him to be the favorite, but I don't think he'll be a favorite in anyone's eyes, but he's definitely going to be up there. I don't know if I would take him number one overall, but I think whoever does end up getting him is going to get a number one value for him.
Yeah, the only reason I can see somebody taking other than James Harden at number one is they're comfortable with building a team around another player and weren't fortunate enough to you can always trade back. If you want Steph Curry, I feel like you can always trade back to picks 3 or 4. It's not a bad move to get some assets later in your draft. But I just feel like if you pass up on a player like James Harden, like Anthony Davis or Giannis Antetokounmpo to take Steph Curry number one overall, you're not getting as much value as you should be. You should definitely consider trading back a little bit and getting your star player like, I don't know, Curry, LeBron, KD, Damian Lillard even is in that conversation too. So don't really reach on Steph Curry because you could still get some value with him.
Yeah, I feel like there'll be other point guards in like the second and third round that could still help. I think in the first round, I think you just get even if you get the number one overall pick, I don't know if Harden should be there. I feel like this is a year where you might want to take a power forward or a small forward if you do have a number one overall pick. So I think like maybe looking at Giannis or Anthony Davis potentially, because I feel like LeBron's going to look to him more to carry the offense this season. Now that after playing a full season with him now knowing what Anthony Davis is capable of, I feel like taking one, and Sam, you talked about Giannis being more hungry and being more driven to push for an NBA championship. I would think that you would take a forward here first, and then you can always pick up a guy like in the second round, like maybe Damian Lillard.
Yep.
Or maybe if you want to wait.
I don't even know if
later.
Lillard sneaks into the second round. I
don't think so either,
pick.
but honestly, I could see him falling to like the early second round potentially.
In an 8-man league, if you're in a 10-man league, Lillard's not going to be there.
Yeah, no. But if you're in an 8-man, I for sure think like he'll be there in like the first pick or two in the second round. Or if you want to wait later, because I feel like there's going to be guys like Devontae Graham that you can pick up, or we mentioned Drew Holiday. He can be another viable option.
And we haven't gotten to sleepers just yet, but those are all going to be great sleeper picks.
If you want to wait, I definitely feel like if you want to wait for a guard, you can. I think there's going to be more availability on guards later down the road. I feel like your first few picks have to solidify a good forward and center combo.
So let me ask you a question then, because I want to continue going along this train of thought here.
Sure.
ESPN's number 2 ranked player is Nikola Jokic.
Yeah.
Would you consider that as a number 1 overall pick?
No, I mean, Jokic is a triple, is a guy that can get you triple doubles, but I feel like Jamal Murray, who again is another great guard that you can probably pick up in like the 3rd or 4th round, is I think is more the focal point of that offense. I think we saw that during the playoffs, especially when he was going up against Donovan Mitchell and going up against the Clippers. Like he was dropping 40, 50-point games.
So why is
a lot of leagues?
Sorry, Sam. Why is Jokic's value so high then?
And I can just answer that
because he's a point center. Like he's gonna get you the numbers as a point as a center, but also as you the assists as well. And so that's what makes him valuable, is that he's going to get you high numbers in all 3 of those categories.
And those offensive rebounds really help.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not just that, it's also a lot of leagues. And I think our league is like standard scoring. They give you extra points for triple doubles.
Yeah. So,
and he's more likely to get those triple doubles.
He is more likely. Same thing with Giannis, and same thing with maybe look at a guy like Luka to possibly get a few during the season. So for sure, I think that's why Jokic is up there, because he's gonna fill up all 3 of those categories for you for sure. And then on top of that, he's gonna get you blocks. He's gonna get you offensive rebounds. He's gonna get you potentially a steal or two a game. Like he's gonna get you all of those while shooting well, and you don't have to worry about missed threes or missed shots or anything like that.
And he doesn't really turn the ball over that much either.
Exactly.
He's a very smart player with where he makes those passes.
Yeah.
So he's not going to lose you any points, and he's only going to gain some more for you.
So that's yeah.
1 second. First of all, welcome back, Ben. It's a pleasure having you on the show with us. I want to get your thoughts on Nikola Jokic being the ESPN's second-ranked player and the person right behind him that Brandon just mentioned. Luka Doncic is the number 3rd overall ESPN fantasy player ranked in the NBA. This is crazy to me that we're seeing a year, such a young guy come into the NBA and already be in the top 4, top 5 potentially players taken. But ESPN has him at number 3. What are your thoughts?
With Nikola Jokic, I understand it. Not to draw the Bam comparison, but that's why Bam's going to go high in a lot of drafts, just because he is he has the ability to pass, he has the ability to run the offense, and the offense a lot. It goes through him a lot. I think a lot of people aren't really talking about the fact of now he has a Jamal Murray, which it looks like Murray is taking a huge step up. Then maybe it's just for the playoffs, but it looks like Murray has taken a big step up in his game. He still kind of has the same team around him, so it's not like he's losing a lot of players, except for Jeremy Grant. But he kind of and Mason Plumlee. But I mean, it's the Pistons. But I think I understand it. I understand putting him as high as I understand putting him high. I don't know if I'd put him over Luka, because on my paper I would say, just for people that we because I was listening to the podcast when I was away. Just people that weren't really talked about. I kind of thought about Luka Doncic or even a Joel Embiid, especially in Joel Embiid's new system. I don't think he goes first. But I think that he will be a very impactful player. I think he's ranked 16th actually on the ESPN fantasy league. Just because he is going.
You're definitely getting a steal with Joel Embiid if you get him at number 16.
Joel Embiid is my favorite for MVP. Joel Embiid should be taken in the beginning of second rounds, or when it's not a bad reach to get, in my opinion, a center with equal value to Nikola Jokic that late. That is incredible to me that they have one of the best centers in the NBA. They have Andre Drummond, two ranks behind him.
Okay, all right. But in all fairness, name 3 players from Cleveland besides Andre Drummond.
Sexton, Garland, Kevin Love.
Yeah, fair enough. I
mean,
those are obvious.
If you ask that to someone that doesn't cover sports every single day, then it might be a lot harder to answer.
They also got Chetty Osman. I think Larry Nance might still be there. I'm not sure, but shout out Larry Nance Jr. They're not going to be too terrible this year.
Yeah, they're going to be a really great 15 seed in the East.
Oh no, but seriously, guys, let's move on to our next subject. And hey, as you guys can tell by Brandon's post, this is the Cleveland Cavaliers for you. Why are you booing me? I'm right. I'm gonna be a nice 15-win team. Don't judge me. No, but on a more serious note, Karl Anthony Towns, I see him on some mock drafts being selected 3 or 4. They're taking James Harden, Anthony Davis, and then Karl Anthony Towns or like Giannis. So I'm not too happy about Karl Anthony Towns. I've taken him in the past with my first round picks. 2 years ago, it was the 8th overall pick that I had, and I was kind of forced to take Karl Anthony Towns because, as you guys were talking about, the center value and getting a high value center that can night in and night out dominate for you is kind of difficult to get in fantasy leagues. So you're going to make sure to want to get a center early. I wouldn't recommend getting a center round 1 because you can get such a high value shooting guard or point guard or any other.
I think the weird thing is that that like motto of the center is dying in the modern NBA has kind of gotten thrown out the window in recent years because players that do play center are playing that point center role. And Jokic is like one of the first guys we mentioned. I know Ben also mentioned Bam Adebayo. He plays that role. And more guys are starting to do it. Even Joel Embiid, who's not really a point center, is still tries to get his assist numbers up. So as more and more players are starting to do that role, I think the value from the center position in general has just gone up. So I don't know if I would take Karl Anthony Towns at number 4, but if he slips to you at number 8, I think Karl Anthony Towns is going to be that player where he's going to be projected high, and someone at the end of the first round is going to get really lucky that he slipped down to them because everyone keeps making the same judgments. Well, there's a bigger star name out there first, right? Karl Anthony Towns isn't the biggest star, but also that team in Minnesota is getting better. He's got Ricky Rubio tossing him the ball. He got D'Lo tossing him the ball. Maybe D'Lo missing a bunch of shots that he's going to get offensive rebounds and putbacks. So I think there's some interesting things with Cat if you can get him later in the first round. I don't know if I would take
My
him at
issue
number 2
with
or
Cat
3.
is that he's not a defensive center. He's not a guy that's gonna be. We look at Anthony Davis, and we say like that's a complete center. We look at Anthony Davis and Joel Embiid and like that's a complete center. Like he's doing everything offensively and defensively. Cat has never been the most defensive forward or center out there. So that would be my worry if you're gonna take a guy like Cat. It's just like just be prepared to like not have him put up spectacular defensive numbers like a regular center would.
I would never choose Karl Anthony Towns ever over Anthony Davis in my
No,
entire
obviously you
lifetime.
shouldn't.
And
Because
he's
first off,
he's ranked
Cat's
over
only one
Anthony
center.
Davis. He's ranked over Anthony Davis.
I think just because he's going to be more and I get why, because you look at Minnesota, you look at the Lakers, and you'd be like, oh, Anthony Davis is with LeBron. But we've seen last year that Anthony Davis is starting to, in some games, and especially during the finals and during the playoff run, like he was starting to become the focal point of the offense. I think that's going to continue this season.
He was my choice for Finals MVP because of how well he played during the postseason.
Karl Anthony Towns.
I think he fell off in the last game, and that's what cost him that.
Karl Anthony Towns is the focal point in Minnesota, but
they revamped.
Not the same center as Anthony Davis. He's not the same defensive center.
Go ahead, Ben.
And I hate to bring this up just because it's something that we don't wish on anyone. But we did hear some news that Karl Anthony Towns would be taking like any procedure possible to make sure that his family's safe after, I believe, the 7th family member passing away from COVID. We kind of voiced my worry about someone like a James Conner who would be more susceptible and more vulnerable to a virus like this. And I won't say he sit out, but I think that, that looking in a very bad way, it will affect his draft stock. But, if anything, we just want to make sure that he'll be okay and his family will be okay. This isn't something to joke about. So I think that could tank his draft stock. But I mean, I understand with the defensive point. I think what they're going at is, well, Timberwolves are kind of a, not only do they have D'Lo, they are coming back with a Ricky Rubio, who is a more, like quarterback style. He's a facilitator a lot. He facilitates the offense, I think, probably better than D'Angelo Russell. But I'd say there are some concerns with putting Karl Anthony Towns as high as he is. I'm very surprised they didn't put Anthony Davis higher than him, just because I think Anthony Davis, especially with, not just signing Supermax, but seeing what he's done in the playoffs, I think he really kind of took the reins from LeBron. And I think that with that, it kind of comes down to
especially because LeBron's gonna probably miss a lot of time. It's a shortened off season. We know that it's gonna be a shortened regular season, so LeBron's gonna miss a lot of time. But Davis is young, he's relatively healthy. He gets hurt like 5 times a game, but he never actually misses any time.
I think though, I think maybe another reason is just because we are going to get maybe a shortened season, or we're going to get a shortened schedule, and just maybe rest is going to be a big thing. And that was a big conversational point, is like they're going to have back-to-back, like not more back-to-back games, like but there's going to be more back-to-back games in the same city. So like maybe resting your guy or something like that
Yeah.
is going to be another big factor here. But yeah, I just, in my opinion, like they're going to have Carl Anthony Towns over him like, because it's look at where he's at compared to Anthony Davis, but in reality, I think Anthony Davis is the better shout here.
Yeah.
Of course.
So moving on, because I do want to cover ESPN ranked. I know we went over Steph Curry. He's ranked 8 on ESPN, but we said he's potentially top 4. Damian Lillard, Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum, Trae Young are 4 players ranked 9, 10, 11, and 12. Trae Young makes the top 15, coming at number 12. Jason Tatum also, a young all-star out of Boston. That's really cool. But to have those 2 players, all right, let me put it into perspective. Damian Lillard, probably the second or third best point guard in the league. Kevin Durant, one of the best small forwards in the league. Right after, you get a young small forward and a young point guard right after them. You get the comparison I'm making here? What are your thoughts on even considering taking Jason Tatum in the beginning of the second round as your second star, or if you're in a bigger league, selecting him in the first round?
I like
Well,
it.
this isn't you're not building a real NBA team here. We're building a fantasy team.
Mhm.
So it's all about numbers. Who could put up the best numbers? It's not who's going to lead your real team to an NBA championship. It's who's going to put up the biggest numbers. And I think out of the 2, Trae Young is going to put up massive numbers. We know what he could do in terms of putting the ball in the basket himself, but he's got a team around him now, which is something we have not seen for the majority of his short NBA career. He now has Danilo Gallinari. He has John Collins coming back again. Clint Capella to throw lobs to. He has Bogdan Bogdanovic to dish the ball to. He has guys who can make shots. So his assist numbers, they were already pretty good. They're going to go even higher. His scoring numbers, I don't see them dropping because he's just going to get more wide open shots. He's not going to miss shots from 40 feet out because they know, like the other teams know, they can sag off the other 4 players on the Hawks.
Mhm.
Trae Young's numbers are going to skyrocket this year, and that's scary to say because he was already a top scorer in fantasy. Are either of these guys people who I would want to build an NBA team around to win a championship this year? Maybe, maybe not. But for fantasy, geez, they're going to be fantasy league winners for sure.
I would take either one. If I was to take one in the second round or late first round, I would take Jason Tatum.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like, yeah, like Trae Young might be the obvious choice here because he's going to get you, I don't know, 25 points a game and let's say like 7 to 9 assists a game now that he has more than just John Collins and half a season with Clint Capella, even though I don't think Clint Capella played for the Hawks once he got traded.
No, because the season ended like right after that.
Right. So I don't think he's played. So yeah, like they have more of a structured team now, but you just look at what Boston has been able to do with Jason Tatum and the level of success. Like I feel like he's the more safe pick.
Yep.
If you're going for if you're going for your second round pick, is to get Jason Tatum.
So is there any argument to take Trae Young or Jason Tatum ahead of Damian Lillard or Kevin Durant?
No.
Kevin Durant, yes, because Kevin Durant's not playing until month 3, I think, of the NBA.
What are your thoughts, Ben?
Not with Damian Lillard. I can understand Kevin Durant because of the injury, but not with Damian. I mean, he not only is he one of the best scorers I think we have in the league, he does facilitate the offense pretty well, and Portland looked a lot better than they not only as a team, but they finally got Hassan Whiteside off their floor. They're able to get Nurkic on their floor now, which thankfully he recovered from the injury and he looked really
acquired
good.
Cantor.
Yeah, they got Cantor. They
Derek Jones Jr. They re-signed Carmelo.
Yeah, I mean they looked revamped, and I think maybe his points will dip a little bit, but I mean the assist numbers will pile in.
This is why this is why I like to think that Portland is going to be a top 3 seed in the West this year. Just the acquisitions, just what there's like. Dame's going to go on is going to go off on a whole, we're going to see like Dame really put up some numbers, an explosion, and now you add more of a complete team around him that offers more defensive cover as well. I'm really high on Portland this year.
Yeah, Portland for sure is going to be one of those teams that you need to watch every time you get the chance. Not only because Damian Lillard's in the house, but Carmelo Anthony is one of those guys that is like LeBron. You know, when he's playing, he's like one of those relics, those artifacts back from the early 2000s of NBA basketball that don't really exist much anymore around the NBA. So he's history when you watch him on the floor, and there's so much more to his game than just playing it. Moving on. Bradley Beal, Pascal Siakam, Devin Booker. Bradley Beal, number 13th ranked player. His newly acquired teammate, Russell Westbrook, ranked 19. What are your thoughts on that?
Dude, I think maybe Westbrook might need to be ranked higher than Beal. I think that Westbrook's going to get a lot more attention the way it's going to work. Beal is a fantastic scorer, but for fantasy basketball, I'm not talking about as a player on the court. For fantasy basketball, he mostly puts up points, and then he gets a couple assists a game, and he gets a couple of rebounds a game. Whereas someone like Westbrook is going to stuff the stat sheet in all the categories imaginable. I'm not trying to say that Westbrook's a better player at this point in his career than Beal, because that would be preposterous. But I think in terms of a fantasy player, Westbrook's going to give you a lot more value in all of those categories. He might not score as much as Beal this year. I think that Westbrook might finally take that backseat role of letting someone else run the offense and not complaining about it, like what happened in Houston. But Bradley Beal is not the best distributor. He's not the most tenacious rebounder. He kind of lets either his bigs or his athletic point guard do the job for him on that end. He likes to just break out on the fast break and just be wide open for either a dunk or a shot. So I think that Westbrook might have more fantasy points just because of all the extra stats.
Okay. That's a fair argument, but just a reminder to all those viewing on YouTube, if you are watching the stream live, please make sure to leave a like on the stream and consider subscribing to Backseat Banter. We will be covering fantasy basketball, and we have been covering football throughout the entire season. So make sure to stay tuned and click that bell to stay tuned for more information as well, and fire content coming your way. Back to Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook. These two are going to put up statistical anomalies, is what I like to call them this season. We might see another Russell Westbrook triple-double season where he was being taken in the top top 3 players in the first round of leagues. So that is also a little underrated aspect. I would potentially consider taking him over Damian Lillard. The conversation is there to have. I like Damian Lillard because of his shooting, but as you guys said, this is standard leagues, and you do get extra points for triple doubles. This man might average a triple double, so you might be getting extra points almost every night, which is the reason Russell Westbrook is in the conversation for top 8.
You know, I see Ben is over here reacting like you're talking crazy, but I don't think you're talking crazy. I think that there's an argument to be made.
Wait. I mean, Jonathan, we shouldn't talk about Miami bias, but you definitely want to see Bradley Beal leave Washington for Miami, because I can't see
that is not the case.
Wait, I can't see in a world that Russell Westbrook averages a triple double while also having a second star. We didn't see that when he did average a triple double.
I mean, he had Paul George, and I know we can clown on Paul George in the playoffs, but he was putting up MVP level numbers that year. Like, he was in the MVP conversation.
He was top 3
years.
Also
Westbrook
we haven't
averaged
seen those numbers in a while, anyways.
Because he hasn't had the opportunity. In Houston, he did not have the opportunity.
What about before Houston?
Before Houston, he was averaging a triple-double.
Right.
He was only in Houston 1 year. The year before that, he was with Paul George, averaging a triple-double.
But still, he has a bit. Okay.
Go ahead, Brandon.
First off, I wasn't on that podcast a couple days ago when you guys broke down the John Wall trade and all that kind of stuff. I just want to say my piece on that for a second. I think Houston got the better of that trade. And I see it in the rankings.
One of the few.
And I see it in the rankings, like with this fantasy rankings. Like Bradley Beal last season, 30 points a game, 30.5 points a game, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists a game.
With who on his team?
Okay, no one.
Okay.
Like,
Rui Hachimura.
fine, their second best player was David Bertans, but like I just see those numbers increasing when you add Westbrook. And yes, Westbrook and they're gonna feed off each other.
They
But
go
I
down.
just
No.
but I feel like first off, Westbrook's shot has been deteriorating faster than
It really hasn't
acid.
existed.
Like
And you can't
Okay.
lose something you never had.
But also,
Like-
but also, we're talking about last season with Bradley Beal. What about when Bradley Beal had an athletic point guard in John Wall? Did they really play off each other as well as they did? Because
John Wall was
yes, Bradley
taken
Beal was
in the
averaging
first
20
round of
points.
leagues when he was healthy.
yes, and how did those teams do?
They
did
made
well.
the
I
playoffs.
had John
So
Wall.
fantasy
And they
team.
went far
Remember,
in
we're
those
talking about
they made
fantasy
the
here. We're
second
not
round
talking
of those
about.
playoffs.
I know, but we'll also have to talk about statistical reasons. Can we agree that Washington's team, besides their 2 stars, is better than it was last year?
Of course.
Okay, so don't you think they have to get the ball more? Don't you think the
Yeah,
ball
okay,
That's
needs to
fine.
get
assists.
out
Those two
more?
Those
guards
are
are going to get the
assists,
ball
and
the
assists
most.
are worth
But all
3
I'm
points
saying is
each.
that Bradley
Russell
Beal is the
Westbrook
more
is-
Yes,
consistent
but we're also
shooter.
talking about points as well.
You're gonna
And
Russell Westbrook's
Westbrook's
going to
get-
average 26, 27 plus.
Fine, he's
You're
gonna
also
and
average
he's
forgetting
gonna-
about Danny
all that.
Avdija, bro.
But
That's
he's gonna fine. Westbrook's gonna average all like gonna average a triple double. Fine, but then you get into the scoring, how many shots and his field goal percentage, because that plays a factor too. Bradley Beal is a better, more pure shooter and better efficiency on offense than Russell Westbrook.
Okay.
Russell Westbrook, yes.
I'm looking at
Russell
usage
Westbrook-
rate. I know
Okay.
Bradley Beal had one of the highest last year in the league, but that's just going to go to Russell Westbrook, in my opinion, because
And
he's
that's
the
fine,
facilitator
but-
in
didn't
that
that
offense.
happen also in Houston?
Well, because
No,
we're
they-
comparing James Harden to Bradley Beal
Yeah,
here.
that's
Come on, that's not even funny.
That's not fair.
Okay, no, but you're saying, oh, you're gonna have 2 ball dominant players on the same team. We're looking at that as well. I'm not
But
saying
Bradley Beal
no,
is
no, no,
much
but I'm not,
more
no, no, but I'm
capable.
not saying, but I'm not saying that they're the same player. You're just taking that
Mhm.
same concept and twisting it.
Right. Well, Bradley Beal is a lot more capable of playing off ball, and we've seen him do that
100%.
when John Wall was on the team. James Harden
But
established
Bradley Beal
himself
has
as the
also
best
gotten
ISO
a taste
player in the
of
league.
what it's meant to be an alpha dog. I don't think he's gonna let that
Yeah,
go.
and it
for any-
tastes
Exactly.
like
That's
the
why-
lowest
that's why a
record
lot
in
of-
the NBA.
Bro,
All
but
right.
still, that's why that's
still
no, no,
averaged
that's what-
30 points a game and
All right, boys.
Washington
Mhm.
led Washington to being in the bubble at least for a little bit. So like I don't know.
They got a pity nod. Let's be
It's
real.
it's
I know
the
it's a pity,
backseat. It's the backseat Panther podcast. We're all allowed to have our own opinions here, guys. But with that being said, it might piss some of you off, but I would consider taking Russell Westbrook over Damian Lillard.
All right, do it. Do
Now
it in
that
our
he's in
league. Do it in our
Washington.
league. Do it with your first round pick. Say it with your chest, bro. Do it.
No,
I would not be upset with Russell Westbrook as
That's
my
fine,
best player.
and you're gonna
If
get a lot of
if you-
stats, but then
if
he's
you
gonna
are
lose
selecting-
your points on when he misses
Hold on,
threes
hold
and
on.
misses free throws and shots.
if you are selecting in the later half of the first round, and you do select Russell Westbrook, and you can get another player like Jason Tatum, like Kevin Durant potentially, as your second round pick, I believe it's a no-brainer. That upside
no,
is too
I would
high.
get the pure scorer than the stat sheet stuffer because at least the pure scorer is not going to miss shots for you. And it's going to shoot more effectively from the field, and you don't have to worry about that.
And also, Jason Tatum's got a superior team that is just he could feed off of him as much.
But
as
winning
he
doesn't
wants.
give you any extra points in fantasy.
Yes, but didn't you just say that assists count like 3? So why is it different now?
Because
why is
Jason
it-
Tatum's not as willing of a passer as Russell
Okay,
Westbrook
then what
is.
about Damian Lillard? Why is that different than Russell Westbrook?
We're talking about how Russell
I know,
Westbrook
but
might be
no, but
higher on the
Westbrook's
list
only a
than
willing
Damian
passer
Lillard.
because it's going to get him triple doubles. Let's be real.
Okay, but that's
That's
what
the-
gets
that's
you
the
for
reason.
fantasy. We're not talking about who's a better player in terms of winning
Okay,
your
for
team games.
fantasy, I would
We're
still
talking to
take
fantasy
I
here.
would still take.
I know,
Damian
but we're
Russ.
also talking. But we're also talking about
all right,
like
all right. Order.
Order in the
Backseat
courtroom.
Panther Zoom call. Let's go one at a time here. Get all our opinions out, and then we should move on to throwing players like Devin Booker in the conversation and talk about how Pascal Siakam and Ben Simmons rank. I know we have some beef around those two players for forming in the Backseat Panther community, but last thoughts on the Russell Westbrook conversation, Bradley Beal conversation, Damian Lillard conversation, and then we'll move on quickly. Somebody take it away.
I just feel like you get the more pure scorer and the guy that's going to effectively shoot the ball better for you, especially at that guard position. Westbrook shot is deteriorating faster than Stephen A's hairline. It is it is going
What
down a
hairline?
downhill steep so far. Like it is on a tremendous downslide. If
Sam?
you're gonna take Westbrook over guys like Lillard or Beal, who are more pure shooters and pure scorers, I feel like it's a mistake.
Sam?
All right. I think that in Washington, the guard to own is Russell Westbrook because, yes, you're going to get all the shots from Bradley Beal. He's going to put up, I don't think his scoring numbers are going to really drop that much. He's going to still be in that like 30 point per game territory. His assists will drop because of all the reasons Brandon just said. Russell Westbrook will not be the greatest scorer, and he will most certainly not be scoring off of Bradley Beal's assists. He'll be scoring off of his own ISOs. But Russell Westbrook is going to get a lot more usage rate than he had in Houston. It's going to look a lot more like his usage rate was in Oklahoma when he had Paul George as his co-star and he had Carmelo Anthony on that team, and they were actually a legitimate team. And Russell Westbrook was averaging a triple-double. His shot was not any better then than it is now. He was never a good shooter. He just made a couple shots because he was wide open, because he was such a threat in the playmaking department. Bradley Beal is going to be a great option to own, but I think this is a Steph and Clay situation more so than a Harden and Chris Paul situation a few years ago.
Ben?
Yeah, of course. Of course, Russell Westbrook would be the main guy in Washington because Beal's getting traded to Miami soon, so it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
No, in all seriousness, I don't, we're going to look at like what Brandon said about the Alpha Dog situation. Even if he didn't lead him to the title or didn't lead him to a playoff spot, we look at Kyrie Irving. It's going to be difficult for him to transition. It's going to be difficult for him to transition. It was difficult for him to transition under LeBron when he started becoming too big. Same thing with happened in Cleveland, or not Cleveland, the
Boston.
Celtics. Yeah. So I think I understand the argument, but I think with just like, oh well, if assists count more, well, Damian Lillard has a lot better players on his team that can make more than Russell Westbrook. So I don't really see the validity of the argument. I can understand it, but I truly don't see the clarity.
Let me try and clarify it for you, and then we'll move on. In Houston, teams would try and swarm James Harden in the paint, outside the arc, and then clog the paint. Russell Westbrook was going into situations where the paint is already clogged because James Harden's passing out of him driving, and he's forced to drive with a clogged paint already. Russell Westbrook now with Bradley Beal is going to help him space the floor and get those one-on-ones that he's going to pick apart the league's point guards and just get in for an easy layup and some free throws. It's kind of shocking how great of an opportunity I believe Russell Westbrook has this season to potentially push other point guards in the NBA for the most points. I could even see him getting close. His peak is getting close to Steph Curry points.
Then he's second for MVP, I guess, or is he third behind him and Embiid?
I made that prior to the trade. Russell Westbrook is seriously in the conversation for MVP. That is.
By the way, we are just talking. I hope no one takes this the wrong way. We're talking about in terms of fantasy. I don't know what Silver just went on a little rant about Westbrook being an MVP. I cannot subscribe to that line of thought. I'm talking about fantasy only, because what you get rewarded for in fantasy is a stat sheet stuffer, and that's what Westbrook is. I would not take him over Lillard. I think Lillard is just at that much higher of a level that I would take Lillard over Westbrook. But in terms of just the two guards in Washington, Westbrook and Beal, I'm thinking Westbrook over Beal.
All right, so let's move on. Let's compare. I don't want to do it to you guys. All right, I'll do it to you guys. Ben Simmons and Pascal Siakam. Ben Simmons ranked 17. Pascal Siakam ranked 14. Separating them are Devin Booker, Joel Embiid. What are your thoughts on potentially having one of these guys be your third or potentially fourth star on your team?
Joel Embiid is ranked too low.
Yeah. Devin Booker and Joel Embiid should both be higher than Pascal, in my opinion, because Pascal Siakam, he's going to be the main guy, but we saw a lot of flaws in that Celtics series. And especially with, I don't even know if it's a hot take at this point, even though it pissed off a lot of Raptors fans. But Brand's take of the Raptors not making it really that far in the playoffs and not even being a playoff team.
Mhm.
I don't know if I know his usage might go up, but they're also going to have to initiate play with Fred VanVleet as he just got his contract. They're going to have to look at trying to spread the floor as well. I think it's now become a lot more clear how you can at least slow down Pascal Siakam when you look at someone like a Joel Embiid. Sure, you can get him in the post, but he can shoot pretty well. And with Devin Booker, I mean, that was one of the best performances I've seen by a player in an 8-game stretch. Then I mean, I haven't seen many that I've looked at, but I mean that was
Maybe
really
when Kobe
impressive.
was averaging like 40 for like 10 games in a row or something like that.
But yeah, so I think with that, he also has a lot of backup now with CP3, with Aiton coming back, even with Jalen Smith, who I liked coming out of college. So yeah, I think Devin Booker and Joel Embiid. I think Ben Simmons is rightly kind of low 20s, but I think or low teens, but I think that Devin Booker and Joel Embiid should be higher than Pascal Siakam.
The argument that we were making for Russell Westbrook kind of goes for Ben Simmons as well. The stuffer kind of player, getting to be able to get those rebounds while also facilitating an offense at such a high level in the transition is probably one of his best abilities. So for that reason, I'd like Ben Simmons probably, I don't know, top 15 seems about right for Devin Booker. Joel Embiid should go a little earlier. Pascal Siakam definitely deserves to fall out. I don't know if I would take Bradley Beal over Devin Booker either. But there's conversations to have for taking Ben Simmons and being confident that he will, on a nightly basis, get you near triple-double numbers, which is probably what you're going to ask for in fantasy basketball.
Now, when we did the original topic, this was so long ago, it's kind of a throwback. When we made the original video, Ben Simmons versus Pascal Siakam, I took the side of Pascal Siakam.
Wrong.
But when it comes to...
We're not starting this again, both of you.
When
I
it
don't
comes
care who
to...
started it, I'm finishing it.
When it comes to fantasy, though, I have to take the side of Ben Simmons. Because as much as I think Pascal Siakam is a more well-rounded player, he has the shot... no matter what Silver says and whatever they post on Instagram every offseason, Ben Simmons does not have a shot, and it doesn't seem like he ever will. Pascal is a more well-rounded player, but Ben Simmons is the better fantasy player. He puts up more numbers. He scores at a high rate. It's easy to shut him down in the playoffs, but we're not talking about the playoffs here. He assists at a high rate. He has clearly a better team around him this year. Because like we said, and I agree, the Raptors are going to fall off a little bit. They lost a lot of key players. That's a lot less people for Pascal to pass it out to. So defenses can focus on him a lot more now. And Ben Simmons rebounds at a higher clip as well because he's a weird mix because he's kind of playing guard, but it's likely that he's going to play forward a lot more. So he's going to be hanging around the basket even more so than usual. And he was already a great rebounder, but he wasn't playing the interior defense. So, and plus his defensive numbers, he gets steals like crazy. And sometimes he gambles a little too much and it costs his team points. But for fantasy, you don't care about the gambles. You only care about the ones that go right. So I think Ben Simmons, fantasy wise, is going to be by far the better player. I'm still holding on that Pascal is a better player overall in real life.
Now, in fantasy, you're going to run into these scenarios where you draft a player sometimes because he does have trade value, because he does have name value, and you do believe that if he pops off for the first few weeks or the month, you can then move on from him and get a better player in return. Ben Simmons can have that name value for you early in the season to then move on to potentially one of those top tier guys if you pair Ben Simmons with a later round pick to get maybe Kevin Durant, maybe one of those guys. It's not crazy to hear a trade like that if Ben Simmons performs well at the beginning of the season. So with that in mind, make sure you're selecting your players. Not only your roster is never finalized. That's how I like to look at fantasy basketball. If you need to make a move, you'll make a move. There's always somebody out there that can help you do that.
Yeah,
So,
for everyone that doesn't know, Silber's definition of that is offer the most ridiculous trades and hope that someone bites and trades their star for someone that popped off for a week.
they're not bad. They're not bad trades if the other person
you.
agrees.
They're not bad trades for
if
you.
the other
Shout out
person
to
agrees.
Nikola Mirotic, because for a week in
He was
high
my
school,
MVP.
Silver was trying to get me to trade for him.
For the Chicago Bulls, he like popped off for the first week or two. Like he had more points than LeBron. So I was like, yo, Brandon, you want to like give me your whole team for him? No, but on a more serious note, I like Ben Simmons a lot. If there's nothing else to be said about Ben Simmons, I'd like to move over to talking about Jimmy Butler, Kyrie Irving, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George being the last few that we're gonna cover.
There's one thing I wanted to bring up. I'm sorry to interrupt. You mentioned Jimmy Butler. I was on Twitter just now, and I saw Myers Leonard had a very interesting quote to say about Jimmy Butler's teammate Bam Adebayo. Bam has apparently been working on corner threes, and will probably, this is a quote from Myers Leonard, Bam Adebayo will probably take some corner threes this upcoming season. That I think is not just a value to himself, that's a value for Jimmy Butler as well, as having a guy like that open on the corner, potentially making some shots, might increase Jimmy Butler's assist totals. Just wanted to throw that out there before we continue the rest of this conversation. What are y'all thoughts?
Well, Jimmy Butler is one of those players in fantasy that he's going to stuff the stat sheet on the defensive end. But I believe he's a little inconsistent on offense sometimes because he does take the back seat to some of his other role players. We've seen it in Miami all the time, that it's that next man up mentality that Jimmy's not going to do it every night for you guys. So somebody else has to go and produce. It's not a bad thing. Jimmy Butler still can win you some weeks, but with dominant performances and filling up the stat sheet on the defensive end. But I don't believe that I would be comfortable taking him over Kyrie Irving because of how much Kyrie Irving can do, especially with a player like Kevin Durant now. His assist numbers might skyrocket. We might see a Kyrie Irving that we've seen in Cleveland of past. So that could be really cool. Kawhi Leonard also is a player that I wouldn't take over Jimmy Butler just because of that load management kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just too much of a risk to take Kawhi Leonard.
Wait, I was a little confused. So you're taking Kyrie over Jimmy, but you're not taking Kawhi over Jimmy. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. That just wanted to make sure we keep all those names in order. Ben, Brandon, thoughts?
I think with Kyrie Irving, I would still be hesitant to take him just because of the whole, who's going to lead that team. And maybe they've already figured that one out. We saw with the big three that was a pretty difficult thing to figure out that first season. And maybe it's difficult here. I don't know. I will second the whole Kawhi Leonard thing. And Paul George, I think it's, I don't think he played so terribly in the regular season. I just think that I don't know how many people will take him just because he's just fallen down. Like a lot of people, they used to have him in his good graces for what he, I don't want to go to the Lakers. I'm going to try and go to the Clippers and stuff like that. But I think a lot of people have kind of like fallen out with the idea of him. With Jimmy Butler, I will argue that we want to talk about like the potential for a good game. He did average, I believe, double-digit points. And his assist numbers probably will go up with Bam, and now Duncan Robinson's added the mid. It seems like he's added the mid-range. Tyler Hero's going to get more usage.
Tyler Hero's bulked up a bit.
Yeah.
He was a lot like more of a grown man rather than just a teenager playing basketball for a living.
Yeah, has Precious Achua, who could definitely, he's very good around the rim. I think I understand the hesitation to take Jimmy Butler. I understand the placement. I think there is an argument for both sides, but I think as presently constructed, I couldn't really argue with that kind of listing where it goes Butler, Irving, Leonard, George.
Okay. Brandon?
Just do quick fire thoughts so we can move on to sleepers. Kyrie's injury prone. I don't really trust it, to be honest. He's been injury prone since he's left Cleveland, and even when he was at Cleveland, he was still injury prone. So he's going to miss significant time. Jimmy Butler is going to be leading the Heat in a lot of categories, so I take him. Paul George, I would put him a little bit over Jimmy just because um again, we saw what he was able to do in the playoffs and not in the playoffs. Oh my God, what in the
Playoff P.
playoffs? Pandemic
Mhm.
P. What he was able to do in the regular season,
Mhm.
and I feel like he's still. And we saw what he was. I mean, we talk about OKC. I think we could. I think it could have a similar. I think he could have maybe a similar impact this season. But yeah, just because again, you take the more pure scorer, and Paul George is the better scorer out of the three. I feel like, and not over Kyrie, but I feel like, but Kyrie's just always injured. So Paul George, Jimmy, Kyrie.
All right.
Let's
Here's
move
one
on.
thing
Oh, go
about
ahead.
Jimmy Butler. What makes Jimmy Butler
Also,
such a
Jimmy's
fantastic
LeBron's dad. So like
Yeah.
this.
What makes Jimmy so fantastic at real life basketball is what kind of hurts his value in fantasy. It's that he'll do whatever he has to do for the team to win. And sometimes that means not taking a single shot for the entire first half of a game because his other teammates are cooking. And that might not even mean getting assists to those guys. Right. We've heard in tons of interviews, Jimmy Butler likes to say, hey, if I score 0 and we win the game, I'm happy because we won the game. And that's not what you want to hear from your fantasy star. That's exactly what you want to hear from your real star. So that's the one thing that really kind of hurts Jimmy Butler's fantasy value because he will go out some games and just play defense. And he'll get like 2 steals and he'll get like 10 points and 3 assists and 5 rebounds. And he'll be happy with that because the team will win because he'll do everything that needs to be done for the team to win. But he's not going to stuff the stat sheet every single night for fantasy.
Which is fine, but at least he's going to be on the floor
Mhm.
compared to Kyrie.
Yeah. But what I was trying to
we
transition to
see a healthy Kyrie now.
there is on the Miami Heat, the guy that does play hard and get stats as well as contribute to winning is Bam Adebayo. Who, by the way, I wasn't there when you guys made this this claim that Bam Adebayo might be a Hassan Whiteside 2.0.
No. That's taken out of context. That was Ben's take of
no.
Could he be a top 15 player?
Yeah. I was gonna say it wasn't.
He said in a
could he be
recent
Hassan
interview
Whiteside?
that he wants to be remembered as a top 5 big man of all time. That is his goal. That is what he believes.
He has
his
the
ceiling
nickname
is.
No Ceiling. Ben, you're not a real Heat fan. Please leave.
I didn't say that he was going to be a
You
Son
have been
Whiteside. I
voted
said
out
I
by the
prayed
tribe.
that he wouldn't be. I prayed that he wouldn't be a Son Whiteside.
Okay.
I would never say.
It was taken out of context.
I know.
According
but
to Jonathan,
I don't know
Ben.
where this even idea could have come from, but
It's just
he
big
seems
man
hungry
gets a
to
lot
get
of money
better.
in Miami.
He seems ready to
Yeah.
get even better. He wants to be a top 5 big man of all time, and that starts with averaging even more points, even more rebounds, even more assists this season. So I think on the Heat, the more reliable fantasy player might be Bam Adebayo. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I like Bam. He's gonna do a lot of things. As I was saying, Jimmy does take the back seat sometimes. I like Bam moving forward. I want to transition that though into sleepers because I believe Bam isn't one of those guys that you're gonna take really, really early in your drafts. Although you might take him in the first few rounds, it's acceptable to take a guy like that because he will produce for you.
He's like a 3rd or 4th round guy,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah. So I want to talk about some guys that you'll take mid rounds, not too early, but there's still value picks. I'm gonna go with Domantas Sabonis for my first one.
Okay.
Sabonis is a really good guy out of Indiana who is an all-star last year and is projected. He's ESPN ranked 43rd, which is really, really far for him. I believe he's gonna surpass that and potentially be a top 25 player. That might be a little bit of a bold prediction, but it's not outlandish. And look for Draymond Green to kind of get you some of those stat stuffed games that he's had in the past when Steph Curry's healthy.
All right, I got one for you.
Go ahead.
Ready? Number 101 on ESPN is Kevin Love. If you can get yourself Kevin Love in the, 9th round, you can get yourself a former All-Star who's still pretty much the focal point of the offense on that team, right? The only guy that's going to be making shots in Cleveland is Kevin Love. If you could get yourself a guy like that in the 9th round, give or take, That's a steal of the draft right there. If I've ever seen one.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know, man. They have Drummond ranked like 18th, so I don't know if that's gonna affect it. But I agree. I didn't know, like, I thought sleepers were meant for context, like, oh, this guy could be a sleeper for the pick that he's in, rather than like, oh, he's late in the round. One guy that I have at 90 is Lauri Markkanen. He has a new coach that can believe in him. We've seen his potential before. I think that he could definitely have a step up from last year, which I think a lot of people were very disappointed about what happened last year in Chicago. So I think definitely with the right pieces around him, I think he can have a really good season for you.
Yeah.
Sam, I'll do you one better. 126 is Blake Griffin.
Yo, he's ranked 126.
Yeah. So if you can get Blake Griffin in like the 9th or 10th round, one of the leading scorers, if not the leading scorer for Detroit, I feel like that to me is not only a sleeper.
Yeah,
that is
you gotta remember
steal.
all 4 centers that they have, bro. You can't.
It doesn't matter. And
he's still going to be by far the best one out.
He's still going to be the best player on the. He's still going to be the best player on the Pistons. So,
dude, there's no way he slips that far in an actual draft, though, right?
But we're going off what ESPN ranks, which is honestly looking like a load of barnacles, in my opinion. 126 for Blake Griffin, and then
look at 127. It's his Lob City teammate, former Lob City.
You go down a little bit more.
Bojan
Bogdanovic. I mean, this guy like averaged like 18 points in Utah, and you're gonna take him in like the 10th round? Like, you kidding me?
Yeah,
that's wild.
I also have a few other sleepers, not that late. The 88th and the 107th ESPN ranked players, Eric Bledsoe, and my biggest steal of this NBA offseason, Christian Wood in Houston. These two players are really going to perform. I know Eric Bledsoe and Lonzo Ball are going to be running that offense in New Orleans. So you're not going to see Eric Bledsoe's assist numbers really go up, but I do feel like he's going to thrive off of playing with Zion, Brandon Ingram, and Lonzo Ball. People are often going to sleep on him, and he's going to be one of those guys to get you 18, 20 points potentially. So Eric Bledsoe could be a nice little pick. And again, one of my favorite players, Christian Wood, really is going to step up this season in Houston and give you good value out of the top 100 players.
Definitely did.
Just two that I saw around the 70 area, which is Jaylen Brown and the $120 million man, Gordon Hayward. If you pay that much money, you expect him to have a decent enough output. I know injury is going to hark on him, and we don't know how good Ball is going to be. But Jaylen Brown to me is kind of it seems like such a slip for a player that I kind of rank as one of the best two-way players in the league.
Yeah, he might be a top 30, top 40 player in the NBA.
And I wrote down DeMarcus Cousins, forgetting about Christian Wood, because I think that if there's any season that a player needs to come back and show that he's better than what he's getting paid, or he deserves more, then it's DeMarcus Cousins this season.
If DeMarcus Cousins can get into his all-star level form that we saw in Sacramento and in New Orleans before he got that Achilles injury, I'm telling you, not only did Houston get a steal, but if your fantasy team will get a steal.
Yeah.
At that, especially if you pick him in the later round.
There's someone I'm looking at. No, Brandon, I completely agree with you. By the way, sorry I cut you off there.
D Boogie,
my internet
for MVP
was bugging a little. But there's one guy that we haven't mentioned yet. He's actually ranked quite high, I think.
Don't say Michael Porter Jr.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
He's actually ranked quite high on ESPN. I thought he'd be ranked a little lower, but I still think he could be a steal because I think even though he is ranked high, I don't think a lot of people will actually bite on him and he'll slip. Kelly Oubre. I think that if we're talking about Steph Curry as an MVP,
Tsunami Papi.
If we're talking about Steph Curry as an MVP level player, then Kelly Oubre is going to get a lot of benefit from that. He's going to get a lot of wide open shots.
Same argument for Draymond.
I like him in this Golden State offense. Like, I really feel like I feel like Steve Kerr is going to get the best out of him. I really like it.
What was his
So-
ranking?
He was ranked 58.
Wow, that's really early, I think.
Yeah, I think I was a little surprised when I saw it because I searched for the name before I saw his number. But
Another
the
one-
reason I brought this up is because he had an interview on Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson's podcast, and he said that he's not the superstar status of KD, but he can be just as effective as KD was on the team with the offense that they're running there.
Well, don't ask Brandon how effective people are compared to KD because he might just throw Denny Avdija into that conversation again. No, but I like the picks. I see Mike Conley at 95. I wouldn't even bite there. Mike Conley should slip.
Yeah.
And if you need a backup point guard, you take him. Spencer Dinwiddie is a better option for you there. Again, James Wiseman, if we're talking about Steph Curry effect and the gravity he brings, running that pick and roll offense, I feel like there's just going to be so many viable fantasy players available on the Golden State Warriors, like we've seen in the past. As strength in numbers, they're going to be able to distribute that ball, but James Wiseman's going to make up for the lack of post touches, I guess, with the motion basketball that the Warriors play. He's going to be setting a lot of screens and getting a lot of finishes near the rim.
Yeah.
Definitely, man.
All right. This is gonna take a little explaining to do, but he's all the way down at 170, and it's
Okay.
Goran Dragic for me.
170?
Okay, I understand it because of injury. He might not be there for the first couple of
170 though.
weeks, and we do talk about another one who I wanted to talk about, Tyler Hero at 84. But
Ben's making this into a Miami Heat
Hey,
podcast.
no, bro. Okay. Are you not saying Goran at 170 is a steal?
You said
You get Goran Dragic
hold
at
on.
170.
Ben's steals of the night. Bam,
I
Jimmy,
didn't say,
Goran.
yo, no.
Duncan Robinson.
Hold on.
Casey Okpala.
I didn't say.
Pauly Bola.
I didn't say.
Oh boy.
I didn't say Jimmy Butler was a steal. I said Bam. Bam could be a steal because I project him to be a top 15 player. I was contextualizing Goran. With using Tyler Hero because he will get a lot more minutes. I won't put Duncan Robinson because I feel like he's way too inconsistent as a scorer, and that's really his main thing. But with Goran Dragic, the only thing I can see is he's coming back from injury, but he's getting a lot of improvement in Tyler Hero, in a Bam. Jimmy Butler. I mean, we joke that he might be Michael Jordan's son, but he really took the Detroit Pistons beating away and just started bulking, just started getting everyone to muscle up on that team. But I could genuinely understand why it's 170. But you're talking about the guy that led the team in scoring in the playoffs. Like that, it just seems way too low for someone like
No,
that.
that's definitely qualifies for steal territory. If you could get him at 170, that is steal territory by far. I'm looking just to see if there's anyone else that we can find.
I've got two.
I got one right here at
one.
191. The projected starting point guard or maybe shooting guard for the Sixers, Seth Curry. They gave up quite a little bit to get him. They got Josh Richardson that they shipped out to get Seth Curry. So Richardson was a starter. Now they're getting Seth Curry as a starter, and this is a team that is in desperate need for some shooting. So I do think that they're going to be giving him the opportunity to shoot the ball a lot. I think he could just dump it down low to Joel Embiid and get some free assists with no skill of his own to get those. And at 191, by the way, if you draft Steph Curry with your first round pick, you better get Seth Curry with your 10th round pick just to complete the duo there on your team.
All right, Brandon,
Wait. I had a joke though. We know Silver is going to do that and then try to scam you, tell you that he's trading S Curry.
You guys rank on me for being a bad trader, but that is not the case.
419 Nigerian prince, it's.
You guys,
I'll give you S Curry for LeBron.
I'm not taking this hate. Although I might have tried that.
It's like that
Already.
DJ Khaled cover, "Suffering from Success."
Like, I'm not gonna take the hate, but I'm also not gonna deny that I've
No,
tried doing that before.
just that was like
I
a
can neither
meme, you know.
confirm nor deny my presence in this
No,
case.
if he accepted it, I was gonna veto it. Obviously, I do make some memes throughout the year. See if what I can get away with, and you should if you can make the best value team. Why
Mhm.
not? The rich get richer, you know. So if you have a good draft and you have those assets to upgrade your players, do so. So Brandon, give your last player, then I'll give my last two, and we'll wrap things up.
Yeah, so one of my guys that I thought like just like Sam was a little bit too high, but like if you can get him in the later rounds, I still feel like it could be a steal. Um, at 42 is Fred VanVleet.
Hmm.
I feel like he's going to be, especially since the Raptors paid him a lot more now. I feel like he's going to be, alongside Siakam a lot
Mhm.
more, and I feel like he's going to be more like not just coming off the bench, but I feel like they're going to actually look to start him maybe over Lowry or maybe playing him alongside Lowry, and really get him more minutes and get him more playing time. So that's one. Then the other one, I have to scroll down a little bit, because all the way at one. Where is it? 199. Now there's a guy that comes off the bench, but I feel like he's gonna have a lot more impact in Stan Van Gundy's system.
Hmm.
Is Josh Hart. I
Nice.
feel like he's gonna improve a little bit more. I feel like they actually might move on from JJ Redick at the trade deadline. So he's maybe a second half of the season kind of guy. But if you can get him, I feel like even if you pick him up in the waiver wires towards maybe the end, like the end of the first half of the season, I still feel like he's going to be a good pickup.
That's a league winner type player right there. That's like a super like waiver wires steal type of guy that you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah. So good. Everybody had really good sleepers tonight, and I'm just gonna round it off with two that if you do select a guard or two in your first few selections, you're gonna be lacking in the center department, and I'm gonna give you what
Don't
you
say Mo
need.
Bamba.
I'm not gonna say Mo Bamba. I'm gonna give you what you need to succeed later in the rounds if you do lack the center position. Tristan Thompson, center for Boston, and Marcus Gasol, center for the Los Angeles Lakers, are two players that I'm looking at to potentially fill in that center role if you are lacking in it. Because Tristan Thompson, we know how desperately the Boston Celtics needed a center last year. Tice wasn't doing it for them, and really they needed a guy who can go out there and rebound, and Tristan Thompson has proved in the past that he can be a rebounding machine, and that is where he will make you successful in selecting him. He is a value pick if you do draft point guards early. Marcus Gasol, on the other hand, really good defensive player. LeBron jokes that his Defensive Player of the Year award is sitting in Marcus Gasol's house, but Marcus Gasol is going to provide one of those like two big men effect with Anthony Davis and Marcus Gasol just protecting the rim. He's going to have a lot of opportunity to
And
get
he
a
can
lot of
shoot.
blocks and finish around the rim in the post and shoot threes. Those are my two last sleepers. Thank you, everybody who has tuned in to our live stream throughout. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. Hit us up on DM. Let us know you listened at backseat.banter. Shout us out on Twitter at BBPodOfficial. We really appreciate everybody who is tuning in. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple the day after, check out our YouTube video and click that bell because we do go live often. And you guys can catch these episode lives late at night when we do record. So you can do it while you're chilling and just winding down, getting ready to sleep. Guys, it's been a pleasure again, as always. We really, I feel, prepared our audience for their fantasy drafts. And we're looking forward to a nice COVID-free NBA season. So with that being said, really appreciate everybody who has tuned in.